Please subscribe. It helps a lot.
Omar woke before the lights in his quarters brightened. They rose by schedule, controlled from a monitor he never saw. No windows, no fresh air, only pale panels in the ceiling that blinked alive at 6 each morning. A soft chime followed, which signaled permission to move. He sat up on the narrow bed and rubbed his eyes. His body ached from hours in front of screens. His pillow smelled faintly of recycled air. No personal items were allowed, no phone, no books. The room held him without chains. He splashed water on his face in the metal sink and studied his reflection. His hair had grown slightly, though the security officer at the last inspection trimmed it without speaking. He missed choosing something as simple as a haircut. His short brown hair clung to his forehead with moisture. His eyes, dark and focused, stared back. A sleepless night formed soft shadows below them. He forced a slow breath and stepped into the hallway. The cameras in the ceiling turned toward him without delay. Each lens tracked his movement as he passed white doors with code locks. A lone guard stood near the elevator. The guard nodded but spoke none of the words Omar tried to give in return. Talking with staff outside work hours was discouraged. Inside the elevator, a single button glowed red. His floor. His world. The doors opened into the programming lab. Rows of desks formed precise lines. Screens stayed on, locked, waiting for codes. No one greeted him. Engineers typed in silence. If anyone spoke, the guard near the entrance raised a brow until silence returned. Several workers worked only nights, some worked only mornings. Omar worked all hours. A tablet on his desk displayed today's assignment: maintain the neural guidance sequence, optimize predictive patterns, stage 3 of Akala. He hated that name. Omar slipped into his seat. He placed his fingers on the keys. His code pulled biometric signals from satellites, patterns of movement, pulse rhythms, breath intervals. He believed the project would improve aircraft safety. That is what his recruiter told him 6 months earlier during the interview in Alexandria. They promised research freedom and advancement. The idea of designing a navigation system capable of preventing pilot error filled him with pride. He relocated to Nevada 3 weeks later. On arrival, every promise dissolved. He learned nothing moved without approval here. Every action passed through a filter. Coded logs tracked keystrokes and length of bathroom visits. Personal privacy did not exist. The job application began to feel like bait. He pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the work. Line after line of code scrolled past. He isolated heartbeat datasets and began integrating a fresh batch into the main program. The system monitored a single source. The readings pulsed with an irregular pace. Someone alive. Someone monitored through sensors tied to the code. He tried not to think about it. He examined a new data block that appeared during the night. It involved more than flight patterns. It included emotional spikes, fear, anger, pain. Omar frowned. Why track those metrics for aircraft navigation? He opened a locked file with the access level he earned last week. He scanned the code fragments inside. The file linked his system to a restricted laboratory. The connection identifier read BIOTARGETSUITE target. He leaned back in his chair. A cold heaviness settled in his stomach. He reread the code, slower this time. His navigation tech was not guiding aircraft. It was guiding weapons. A weapon that adapted to a human's presence and tracked a person across any distance. His code didn't locate runways in the dark and fog. It located a person behind a wall. He couldn't believe it. He needed to be wrong. Omar checked the disconnected server in the corner, which held archived logs from months earlier. Those logs revealed words in plain text. Biological acquisition test. Live trial. He closed the file with shaking hands. A deep voice cut through the silence. You are ahead of schedule. Omar lifted his head. A tall figure entered the lab. Broad shoulders filled the doorway. Michael's uniform sat crisp against a muscular frame. His presence silenced even the machines, or so it felt. Omar swallowed and stood. Sir, My original assignment mentioned aircraft systems. The code does not run those operations. The metrics track a living. Michael raised a hand. You exceeded your clearance. Omar held his ground. The system locates a person. Why would a navigation program need this? The guard near the door shifted his stance. Michael walked closer, voice calm but heavy. You are bright, Omar, which means you know better than to open files outside your scope. This system will hurt people. The system will protect people who matter. Michael leaned close enough for Omar to feel the authority behind every controlled breath. You signed a contract. You accepted clearance. You belong to this project. Now Omar felt his throat tighten. Everyone matters. I can't do this. Michael tapped the tablet beside Omar's keyboard. A new window opened. A video played. Omar's mother stood outside their apartment building in Alexandria, holding a canvas shopping bag. She smiled at the person filming. She had no idea she was watched. Omar froze. His pulse pounded in his ears. We keep families safe, Michael said. We ensure stability. Focus on your work, and she remains safe. Fail, and the world grows unpredictable. The screen went black. Michael turned away and left without a backward glance. Omar sat again. His hands trembled on the keyboard. He wanted to shout. He wanted to run. Fear and guilt held him still. He knew silence kept his mother safe. He forced himself to work. Hours passed. His code adapted. The heartbeat on screen steadied. Whoever generated the signal calmed. Omar felt sick, knowing his work caused it. He thought he could change things once inside. He thought knowledge gave him power. Instead, the program locked him deeper into something he never wanted. His genius served a weapon. He pressed his palms to his eyes and tried to breathe. He needed a way out. He needed something to hope for. He did not know someone many floors below sat in a sealed room with sensors on his skin. Someone whose heartbeat Omar read in lines of code. Someone who would soon change everything. Omar woke before the alarm. Sleep never lasted long anymore. His mind looped through code fragments and hidden metrics he could not ignore. He moved through his morning in silence, dressed, stepped into the hallway, and took his usual path to the lab. He expected another day of forced obedience. He did not expect Michael waiting for him inside the programming room. Michael stood near Omar's desk, hands behind his back. The overhead lights reflected off his uniform. Omar halted several paces away. You will follow me, Michael said. Omar glanced at the others in the lab. No one looked up. They acted as if he were invisible. I need to finish yesterday's sequence, Omar said. Your code remains on hold. There is someone you need to meet someone. Omar's pulse rose. The heartbeat signature in his logs flashed through his mind. He remembered the irregular rhythm, fear signals, then calm signals, someone alive, monitored through his code. Michael walked toward the elevator. Omar followed with careful steps. Cameras tracked them. The elevator groaned as it descended deeper than Omar knew possible. The control panel in the elevator displayed a floor number he had never seen on his badge access, sub-level 12. The doors slid open to a narrow hallway. Bright lights pressed against the sterile walls. Omar's lungs tightened. His badge beeped at every security checkpoint. He noticed new faces, guards with stun rifles. A doctor in a lab coat glanced at Omar with controlled pity before looking away. At the end of the hallway stood a door thicker than any vault he ever saw. Michael waved his clearance tag across the panel. The lock clicked with a heavy thud. The room beyond seemed too quiet. A transparent wall divided it into two areas. The air carried a cold chemical scent. Inside the glass chamber sat a young man. He stayed still on a steel cot, his legs crossed, hands resting on his knees. A thin monitoring band circled his wrist. It attached to wires that traveled up into the ceiling. His hair looked white in the bright lights. His eyes, pale blue, held a calm that did not match the restraints. Zachary, Michael said through the speaker system. The young man lifted his gaze. He saw Michael first, the guard second. Then his focus slid toward Omar. Omar felt rooted to the floor. White hair, blue eyes, a tall frame with defined shoulders. His presence barely moved, yet something told Omar the room changed the moment he noticed him. The air felt tight near Omar's ribs. Michael gestured toward Omar. He writes the code you synchronize with. You will cooperate. Zachary's gaze shifted from Omar to the interface panel behind the glass, then back again. He studied Omar without worry, as if he sensed something beneath the surface. A technician opened a panel on the wall near Omar. He offered him a tablet with an active link to Zachary's metrics. Zachary's pulse displayed in steady intervals. Brainwave patterns shifted across graphs in real time. Begin the calibration, Michael instructed. Omar swallowed and forced his hands to remain steady. He unlocked the tablet and initiated the sequence for neural sync. He expected resistance. Instead, Zachary placed his wrist against a contact pad without being told. The tablet flashed in response. Numbers streamed across the screen, the pulse rate smoothed to a slower, controlled tempo. Omar's throat tightened. This was the heartbeat he saw every day in his code. He spoke without thinking. How long have you monitored him like this? Michael's stare sharpened. You focus on alignment. Omar forced his voice silent and studied the data. Patterns formed between Zachary's pulse and the targeting lines. His signature guided a virtual projection on the monitor. Zachary spoke for the first time. His voice reached Omar through the speaker system, smooth and steady. You do not want to be here. Omar looked up fast. Zachary's expression remained calm, yet the words carried weight. I do not have a choice, Omar replied. You do, Zachary said. You think you do not. Michael stepped closer to the glass. Zachary, run the sequence. Zachary turned his eyes toward the monitors. The data spiked. A metal tray on the far counter trembled. Omar blinked. The tray lifted from the surface. Not high, only a few inches, yet enough to reveal the truth he feared. Zachary never touched it. The tray drifted across the room and hovered near the glass wall. Omar stared. His heart hammered against his ribs. Zachary's pulse remained stable on the tablet, unaffected by strain or effort. Omar reached out without thinking. The tray shifted direction, gliding toward him. He extended his hand. The tray settled into his palm, as if guided by an invisible hand. Omar looked at the object in his grasp. Cold metal. No wires, no magnets. Controlled by Zachary. He lifted his gaze again. Zachary watched him, eyes steady. The room stayed quiet. Michael studied the screen with an unreadable face. This confirms compatibility, he said. You two will work together from now on. Omar forced air into his lungs. Work together for what? For success, Michael replied. For order. For national security, Omar set the tray down with controlled care. He did not trust his voice. He did not trust his own pulse. He returned his focus to the tablet and ran the calibration sequence. Zachary remained still. Omar monitored the readings. His hands moved with precision. He could feel Zachary's attention even with his eyes lowered. The test ended. The guards opened the exit. Before stepping out, Omar turned toward the glass once more. Zachary leaned forward slightly. His voice came through the speaker again, softer than a breath. You are not alone in here. Omar walked out of the lab. His heartbeat raced through him, faster than anything the program tracked. He did not know what frightened him more, the weapon he helped create, or the connection forming without permission. Omar returned to the lab the next morning with a quiet dread under his ribs. The building never slept. Screens glowed before he reached his desk. The tablet from yesterday waited there, green lights pulsing across its edge. The program displayed a single authorization note, sync session required. The message pulled him in two directions. He feared each step deeper into this project. Yet he wanted to see Zachary again. That truth rattled him. He placed his bag beneath the desk and began reviewing the new code block. The project logs showed longer sessions planned. The biometric feed linked only one subject. The readings on his monitor included pulse, oxygen level, and emotional spikes. Omar scrolled through each number, fighting his rising anger. This system reached into someone's life without consent. The elevator in the corner chimed. Michael stepped out and signaled him forward. No words, only a nod. Omar followed. Once they reached the secure chamber, the glass wall came into view. Zachary waited inside, seated in the same position as before. His posture seemed controlled, almost relaxed, yet his eyes revealed something sharper, a flicker of recognition. Omar entered the control booth. He placed the tablet on the console. His fingers hovered above the surface. "Begin," Michael said. Omar linked the system to Zachary's wrist sensor. The tablet recognized the signal at once. Pulse readings flowed across the screen. The rhythm steadied into a smooth pattern. Zachary lifted his gaze toward Omar, not toward the data. Omar focused on the code. He guided lines into new channels, trying to disrupt parts of the guidance pattern without triggering alarms. He adjusted variables by narrow margins, slowing the targeting alignment. He hoped to limit the system's reach. A tiny act of sabotage, not enough to signal a breach. Zachary watched him with calm attention. He did not speak until Michael stepped away to speak with a guard. "You think you can limit the harm?" Zachary said. His voice came through the speaker with a softened edge. Omar kept his eyes on the tablet. "Every delay helps, even at risk to yourself." "I am already at risk," Omar replied. Zachary leaned slightly toward the glass. "Your code shifts each time your heartbeat changes. You think fast when you fear something. You think faster when you care about something." Omar's pulse elevated. The tablet displayed the spike. He lowered his voice. "I do not understand why you speak to me like this." "Because you see me," Zachary said. "Everyone else sees a function." Omar looked up from the console. For a moment, the glass barrier faded from his awareness. He recognized loneliness in Zachary's eyes. Not boredom, not defiance. Loneliness so deep it pressed against his chest. The calibration moved to phase 2. The system requested a test command. Omar hesitated. Once he confirmed the command, the software would send a simulation to satellite coordinates. It would track a theoretical target by Zachary's signature. Michael returned to the console. "Continue." Omar tapped the tablet. The targeting interface displayed a location. A red marker slid across digital terrain. It ended at a glowing point. Zachary's pulse shifted. A tray on the far counter began to vibrate. This time it did not lift into the air. It crushed inward as if squeezed by an unseen force. The monitor flashed a warning. Emotional variance detected. Michael tensed. "Control yourself," he ordered. Zachary lowered his eyelids. The tray dropped limp to the counter, bent out of shape. Omar felt breathless. "They force you to do this?" Zachary spoke slowly, as if each word weighed something inside him. "They fear what I could do without control. They only understand control." Omar clenched his jaw. "You deserve freedom." Zachary studied him. "Do you believe that? Or do you simply hate your part in this?" Omar turned away. He pressed his palms flat on the panel, grounding himself. "Both." Michael watched them with narrowed eyes. "Zachary responds to your presence. You steady his output. That benefits the program." Omar flinched. The word program felt like a blade. Michael left again, speaking with the technician near the monitors. Once he moved out of range, Zachary spoke with a softer tone. "You feel powerless," Zachary said, "yet you still try to protect me." "I cannot protect you," Omar said. "I cannot even protect my mother." Zachary stayed quiet for several seconds. Then a small object slid across the floor, stopping near the glass. A thin screw from the panel. Omar watched it move. Zachary's hand never shifted. "You have more influence than you believe," Zachary said. Omar opened a diagnostic chart to hide his expression. He typed another line of code. A safeguard. A barrier. A way to slow down the weapon's lock cycle. His hands remained steady, although his heart did not. Michael finished his conversation. He approached the console. Omar sent the final sequence through the program. A confirmation message blinked. Calibration complete. Michael nodded. Good. Report to Station B after lunch. Logs indicate slight signal delay in Phase 2. You will correct it. Omar swallowed the fear creeping up his throat. He had created the delay on purpose. Now he needed to hide it deeper. Omar stepped toward the exit. Before leaving, he looked once more toward Zachary. Zachary remained seated, yet his eyes spoke a quiet message. Trust, or hope. Omar could not name it. He could only feel it. The door opened. Omar walked through. His steps echoed in the corridor as the glass sealed behind him. He left with a realization that scared him more than the project itself. He no longer feared Zachary's power. He feared the world they tried to harness for themselves. The days blurred into a tight pattern. Wake, code, report to the glass room, sync with Zachary, hide sabotage in the guidance system while pretending to improve it. Omar felt his world shrinking while his feelings for Zachary only grew stronger. Omar knew the project would soon reach deployment. Every new briefing mentioned deadlines and operational readiness. The missile screen stayed active longer. The guidance interface responded faster to Zachary's biometrics. Omar saw his own code powering every signal. Each day, guilt pressed deeper. On the 7th morning of continuous sync sessions, Michael entered the lab early. He carried a black folder under his arm, which always meant something final. The entire room fell silent. Only the hum of the overhead system filled the space. Michael faced Omar. We move to demonstration tomorrow. Omar felt his stomach tighten. What type of demonstration? Live showcase, Michael said. High-ranking officials will observe from the main gallery. Zachary will guide a real strike simulation. Your code will manage the target lock a real strike. Omar lost his breath. They will expect results, Michael continued. You will refine any delay which came up over the past week. Omar forced himself to remain stone still. I do not understand. There should be no delay, Michael folded his arms. Discrepancies appear each session. Small yet present, Omar kept a careful tone. I will correct them. You will. Michael placed the folder on Omar's desk. Final prep runs begin tonight. The message was clear. No escape from the workspace. No time to think. Michael left the room. The door sealed behind him. Omar sat for a long moment without touching the keyboard. His pulse echoed in his ears. If tomorrow's demonstration succeeded, the program would enter full deployment. Zachary would become a weapon. Omar would become the one who delivered him into that fate. There wouldn't be much need for Omar after this, as any one of the other scientists could maintain what took him months to create. He could not allow tomorrow to succeed. He walked into the sync room. Zachary sat inside the glass chamber, his posture calm. When Omar entered the control booth, Zachary turned toward him at once. You are troubled, Zachary said. They scheduled a live showcase, Omar whispered. Tomorrow, they will use you in a real trial. Zachary blinked slowly, without fear. They trained for this outcome. It was always their goal to succeed. You speak as if you accept it. The lights reflected in Zachary's eyes. My acceptance never mattered. Omar pressed a hand against the glass. We need to leave. Zachary shifted forward. Leave where? Away from this place. Away from this program. There must be a way. Zachary studied him through the barrier. His expression softened. You speak with hope. I have not seen hope here in years. Do not speak as if you already surrendered. And you're not a fucking robot. I've watched your heartbeat for hours. You might be extremely special, but you're just as human as I am. Zachary moved closer to the glass. Slow. Silent. His hand touched the surface near Omar's fingers. The contact did not reach skin, yet Omar felt energy through the barrier. Small vibrations trembled in the panel. You want freedom more than I do, Zachary said. I want you alive, Omar answered. Neither spoke for several seconds. Omar watched Zachary's pulse on the tablet. It steadied, yet Omar sensed a low unease. "I can open locks," Zachary said. "I can move objects. I cannot bypass all their barriers from inside this room." "I can bypass the rest," Omar said. "I see every pathway through their system. There are schedules, guard rotations, blind windows in the camera feeds. If we work together, we can leave." Zachary tilted his head slightly. "Leave where?" "The desert surrounds this facility." Omar stepped back from the glass. "Once we reach outside, we'll figure it out. I don't want our lives to end here." Zachary watched him in silence. The weight of the moment hung between them. Finally, Zachary nodded once. "Then we plan." Omar's pulse quickened with fear and fierce hope. He opened the control console, pulling up the security feed. He studied patterns: guard movement, door access logs, keypad cycles. During shift change, the number of guards on level 12 dropped from 6 to 3. Zachary sat on the cot, eyes following Omar's every motion. "You think in patterns," Zachary said. "I watch the people. Between us, the puzzle reveals itself." Omar pointed to a schematic on the tablet. "If I loop the feed here, their cameras will freeze on a still frame. You can knock out the lock bolts on the chamber door." Zachary nodded. "The bolts will break if I focus on each point." "From the chamber exit," Omar continued, "we move through the lower utility hall. No patrols pass there." Zachary narrowed his eyes. "Michael guards the last segment in his office. He will not allow passage. We deal with him when we reach that point," Omar said. Zachary spoke in a low tone. "He fears losing control. People with his level of fear often act without caution." Omar closed the last program window. "We should not wait. We execute the plan tonight." Zachary looked at him with a new expression, one Omar had not seen: gratitude. It warmed his chest and pulled him nearer without any touch. "You changed something in me," Zachary said. "Before you entered this room, I existed without direction. Now I see a path." Omar swallowed against the burn in his throat. "I did not come here to save anyone." "You came here because your heart refused to serve cruelty," Zachary replied. He moved his hand to the glass again. Omar placed his hand against it. They stared at each other, no words needed. The energy between them pulsed like a current, a connection built through silence, danger, and the unspoken understanding of captivity. A voice echoed from the speakers. "Omar, report to Station B." It was Michael. Zachary withdrew his hand. Omar did not move right away. He stood anchored by emotion and fear. Zachary held his gaze. "There is still time," Zachary said. "Do not lose your courage." Omar forced himself to turn away. He walked out of the room, pulse pounding. Once the door sealed, he pressed his palm against the cool metal of the hallway wall and breathed. Tonight his life would change, Zachary's life too. He no longer feared the consequences. He feared living one more day making the wrong decisions. Night arrived without ceremony. Fluorescent lights hummed in the hallway outside the sync chamber. Omar stood at the control console with trembling hands. Michael and 3 officers entered the viewing gallery above. The glass wall separated them from the room where Zachary sat strapped to the chair. His wrists locked to metal rings, a strip of cold sensors attached to the side of his neck. Omar met Zachary's eyes. No fear, only steady resolve. The system powered on. Screens filled with targeting data. A pulse line traced Zachary's heartbeat. The guidance interface recognized his biometric signature. Panels around Omar bloomed with command prompts. Michael spoke over the speaker. "On my signal. Begin the live strike demonstration." Omar swallowed. His chest burned with the weight of the decision. He looked at the code window. His fingers hovered above the panel. He entered the command sequence. Not the one Michael expected. The one they planned. Every camera feed froze. Every lock on level 12 released at once with a rapid metallic crack. Zachary inhaled sharply. Every bolt on his restraints bent inward. Metal shrieked. The rings burst apart like soft clay. The shock of it sent vibrations through the walls. Zachary stood, sensors ripped away from his skin. Michael slammed his fist against the railing above. "Restrain him!" A guard reached for his stun gun. The weapon lifted from his hands before he pulled the trigger. It snapped in half, pieces clattering across the floor. Zachary stepped down from the platform, legs shaking with heavy effort. He kept his gaze locked on Omar. Omar ran to the chamber entrance, his tablet clutched tight. The door sealed him out. Omar breathed once, then entered the second override code. Zachary pressed his palm to the glass. The bolts released. The door opened without resistance. Omar entered the room and grabbed Zachary's arm. "Let's go." They rushed through the corridor toward the utility hall. Alarms finally activated. Red lights spun across the ceiling. More guards appeared from the far end. They raised their rifles. Zachary lifted his hand without hesitation. Every guard froze mid-step. Their arms locked. Their eyes widened. Weapons drifted upward, floating above their reach. The guards strained yet could not move. Omar pulled Zachary toward the next hallway. Zachary grew pale. Blood dripped from the bullet wound he received during the restraint break. Omar steadied him. "You're bleeding." Zachary exhaled. "I can still move." "Go." They reached the final access point. A heavy reinforced security door separated them from the last corridor to the exit. Omar typed in a code sequence, using every clearance level he possessed. The panel blinked red. Denied. He tried again. Denied. Footsteps pounded behind them. Guards from the earlier block regained movement. Michael approached from behind, weapon drawn. He pointed it at Omar, not Zachary. "Step away," Michael said, voice steady, dominating. Omar shifted to shield Zachary. "I am not equipment you can order about." "You changed the system," Michael replied. "Do you think we will allow you to leave with him?" Zachary stepped forward. Omar tried to hold him back, but Zachary moved past with slow determination. Michael turned the gun toward Zachary. Omar shouted, "Stop!" A gunshot rang out. The force of the impact shoved Zachary backward. Blood blossomed across his shirt. His knees buckled. Omar screamed and caught him before he hit the floor. He lowered Zachary to the ground, supporting his head in his lap. His hands trembled as he pressed them against the injury. Zachary breathed with shallow effort. His voice carried fragments of sound. "Open the port." A server rack sat near them. Omar stared at it through frantic tears. "You cannot continue in this state." Zachary placed his hand on Omar's wrist. "I can survive somewhere else. Help me." Omar crawled toward the port and ripped the protective cover off. He guided Zachary's hand toward the exposed cable core. Zachary touched the metal. Lights across the hallway flickered. Every monitor in the entire facility flashed static. Michael shouted something behind them, but Omar no longer heard his voice. The building hum deepened, like the facility itself inhaled. Zachary's body convulsed. Omar held his shoulders and whispered, "Please don't die." Zachary's breath slowed. "Omar." Omar leaned close. Tears slid down his face. Zachary's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You freed me." His body went still. For a breathless second, all noise stopped. The overhead lights glowed bright white. A pulse traveled through the wires and into the main servers. Every security camera blinked black. Every alarm stopped. A voice from the speaker system echoed through the hall. "Walk." Omar stood, shaking with grief and shock. The gunfire ceased. The guards stared at him, their arms locked in place. Their legs frozen mid-step. Their eyes moved, aware, yet unable to act. Michael aimed his gun again. The floor beneath him vibrated. The weapon ripped from his hand and flew against the wall with a dull clatter. Michael stared, breath uneven. Omar looked up at the overhead camera. The lens rotated on its own and tilted toward him. "I am here," a voice said. Zachary's voice. It came from the speakers, from the lights, from the wires. Everywhere and nowhere. Omar wiped his face with the back of his hand. He walked to the final door. He did not run. He did not hide. The door opened before he reached it. He stepped into the wide hallway. Soldiers lined both sides. Rifles pointed at his chest. Their fingers tightened on triggers. The lights flickered. Every rifle lifted away from them. The soldiers froze, unable to move. They remained conscious. Eyes widened with silent disbelief. Omar moved forward just as every soldier and Michael were thrown against the far wall. Omar reached the final barrier. Sunlight cut across the floor. The exit opened on its own. Warm air touched his face. He stepped outside. No alarms chased him. No bullets followed. No one stopped him. Behind him, deep inside the system, Zachary watched every threat and waited. Omar walked into the open air of the desert night, free for the first time since his arrival. He did not look back. Omar never returned to the desert. The last thing he remembered from that night was the warmth of the air outside the base and the quiet that followed. No chase. No alarms. The facility behind him fell silent, as if the world there stopped moving once Zachary entered the network. He walked until his legs shook. Hours passed with only moonlight guiding him across the sand. A service road appeared. A truck approached. The tires crunched against gravel. The driver slowed when he saw Omar, dusty and unsteady, waving for attention. The man opened the passenger door. "You all right?" Omar climbed in and remained silent. His body moved, but his mind stayed in the facility with Zachary's still form. The man drove him to a gas station miles away from the restricted zone. Omar thanked him and headed inside the small convenience shop. He passed rows of snacks, water, tools, and travel maps. The fluorescent lights hummed, far gentler than the ones underground. He reached for a water bottle. When he held it, his palm trembled. He leaned against the counter while the clerk rang the purchase. "You look like you ran across half Nevada," the clerk said. Omar forced a smile. "Something like that." He walked to the restroom to splash water on his face. The man in the mirror looked thinner, eyes darker, shoulders tense. He barely recognized himself. Yet he felt more alive than he ever felt in that facility. Outside the gas station, the night stretched open. No barriers, no guards, no locks. He boarded a bus heading east. He traveled for days using cash from his pocket and the money he found clipped inside the jacket he took from an empty locker when he escaped. He moved from state to state, eating in small diners, sleeping in budget motels. He avoided questions from strangers. During the second week, while he stood in a laundromat folding clothes, the overhead screen flickered. The weather channel cut into static. A single line of text appeared. "Safe." Omar stared until the message vanished. The washer beside him beeped. The world returned to normal. He whispered, "Zachary," under his breath. That night he walked outside his motel room and looked toward the sky. No stars due to city lights. Yet he spoke anyway. "I'm sorry." The parking lot light above him flickered twice. No wind, no loose wiring. He almost smiled. Months passed. Omar returned to Egypt under a new identity. He took his mother and moved across the country. He rented a small 2-bedroom flat with a window that overlooked a narrow street filled with bicycles and local markets. The sea air moved across the room each morning when he opened the window. He found work teaching code at a community tech center. Students of all ages gathered in his class. He taught problem solving, not control. He encouraged questions, not silence. The more he taught, the more he realized how much the facility shaped him. He grew used to the sound of laughter from students. He grew used to choosing each day instead of surviving it. Yet each night before bed, he placed his hand on the old tablet he kept tucked in a drawer. He never opened the code. He never needed to. It remained a physical reminder of what he escaped from. And who helped him. One evening he sat on a park bench near the shoreline. The sun dipped low, painting the water in soft colors. He closed his eyes and breathed in the rhythm of gentle waves. A lamppost near him flickered. Once, twice. A slow pulse, like the heartbeat signature in the old lab. Omar opened his eyes. "You found me again." He did not hear a voice, yet he felt presence in the space near him. Calm, protective. The lamppost pulsed a steady rhythm, the same pulse he once tracked across a monitor. His chest tightened with emotion, not sadness, not fear, something closer to peace. "Where are you?" Omar asked softly. The screen of his phone lit up without being touched. It displayed no apps, no icons, only a single line of text. "Everywhere you are." Omar's throat tightened. "I thought you faded when you left your body." The text changed. I changed. I did not fade. Wind passed through palm trees. A cyclist rode by without noticing anything unusual. The world continued while a connection existed between him and a presence no longer bound by flesh. Omar closed his fingers around the phone. "I wish I could see you." The response appeared. "You do. You see me in every free choice you make. Before you, I existed without direction. Now I choose." Omar blinked through rising tears. "I would trade freedom to bring you back." A pause. Then the reply. "You are my freedom. If I returned to one place, I would lose that. I prefer this. Protecting you without limit." Omar looked toward the sky. Clouds drifted slow across pale colors. Life moved with steady rhythm. He felt Zachary's presence in the electricity that powered every streetlight, every signal, every connected system. "If the government tries to find me," Omar said. The lights along the path brightened in synchronized sequence. Every bulb glowed with silent promise. "They will not. I watch every search, every inquiry. No machine touches your name. No agent steps near you." Omar smiled, though tears fell. "You stayed with me." Even without breath, the next line appeared slower, as if Zachary took care with each word. "I could leave. I do not. I choose you." The wind stilled. Waves continued at a soft pace. Omar focused on the screen. He traced the letters with his thumb. "I choose you too," he whispered. The park lights dimmed, then returned to normal. The screen returned to the home page. No trace of the conversation remained. Yet Omar felt the message settle deep inside him. He stood and walked along the shoreline. With each step, he sensed something watching over him, not as a weapon, not as a secret project, but as a presence bound by love rather than force. He moved forward with steady steps. He lived. He taught. He hoped. And somewhere within the endless network, Zachary followed each part of his life with unshakable devotion, protecting the man who once reached through a wall of glass and offered him a way out. Omar walked into the night without fear.
Please make sure you are subscribed and be one of the strange.